Castillo's Hardware, your trusted source for quality. Looking for unbeatable deals on hardware and home essentials? Head over to Castillo's Hardware today. We've got competitive prices on PVC pipes SCH 40 sizes from 1/2 to 8 inches, SCH 26 sizes from 1 1/4 to 4 inches, up to 20% off on select sizes. And that's not all. Don't miss out on our flash sale featuring the Whirlpool Top Freezer Refrigerator with optional ice maker, freezer temperature controls, dairy bin, and incandescent lighting, all for just $1,295. We also have a special promotion on the Whirlpool washing machine. Get it now for just $1,195. Enjoy multiple wash temperatures, a heavy-duty cycle, and progress monitoring features. Plus, we're offering 50% off Valspar Integrity paints. Choose from a wide range of no-compromise colors for your home, available in gallons and buckets. Visit Castillo's Hardware today for these amazing deals and more. We are located at Pescador Drive, San Pedro Town, Belize. Contact us at 226-2302 or 614-6632. Email cast.hardware@btl.net. These offers are valid while supplies last. Terms and conditions apply. Castillo's Hardware, your trusted source for quality.
As motorcyclists, we know the thrill of the open road, but improper overtaking can result in severe injury or worse. It can shatter your life and dreams. It can shatter the emotions of the people you love. Or, in the best case scenario, you're left with a hefty fine. Driving recklessly is not worth it. Follow the rules of the road and stay alert. Safe overtaking leads to a smooth journey. Choose patience and safety over impatience and recklessness. It can make all the difference. A message from the Second Road Safety Project and the Caribbean Development Bank.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Beyond Basic. Here we are with Season 4, Episode 1, and this summer we're doing a district edition. So that means we're going to be going all around the country featuring youths from youth groups from everywhere, north to south, east to west. So you're going to get to meet our guests very, very soon for our first episode in Belize City. Here we are at our generous sponsor, Bird's Isle, who decided they'll host us to film this episode. And every week we're going to be filming at a new, interesting location. So if you see behind me, there's the sea, and there's also an iguana in the corner. So thank you so much for joining, and we're going to have a really fun-packed episode for you, so please stay tuned to the end. But right now, we're going to start with introductions. Everyone is going to say their name, age, parish, and a fun fact about themselves. And I'm going to start. I'm Tessa Habet. I am from Divine Mercy Parish, and I'm 21 years old. And a fun fact about me is that when I was in high school, I learned Korean because I liked K-pop. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to start off with Ernest.
My name is Ernest. I'm 14 years old. I go to Divine Mercy Youth Group. I have been there for 2 years, and a fun fact is that I like playing volleyball.
Hi, my name is Carly. I'm 17 years old. I'm a part of St. Martin de Porres Youth Group. And a fun fact is that I like Law and Order.
Hi, I'm Ariana. I'm 11 years old. I am a member of St. John Vianney Youth Group. And a fun fact, I am learning French.
Wow.
Thanks to Duolingo.
Duolingo.
And I'm Father David. I won't tell you my age. I'm old enough. And I have worked at St. Martin's, but presently I'm at St. John Vianney Parish here in the city. And fun fact is I'm not the only ordained member of my family. My dad is a permanent deacon back in my home diocese in the U.S.
Wow. That's awesome. Dang, lots of blessings on that family. Okay, so now we're going to start with our game. So what we're going to do is a balloon pop quiz. So everyone is going to get a balloon and a needle. Don't worry, no children will be harmed in the making of this video. And we're going to shuffle the balloons around for a couple seconds. And once our timer is up, then we're going to hold the balloons that we have and we're going to pop them and answer the question that is inside of the balloon. So we're gonna start now with the balloons. Okay. So now that we each have our balloons, we will take turns. So one by one, we'll start with Ernest. Oh,
I'm scared
and
to
then
pop
get
my
the
one.
garbage to JP.
If you were a punctuation mark, which one would you be and why? I'd probably want to be a question mark because I'm curious.
That's a good answer. Okay, Carly.
If you could eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be? Probably pizza and wings.
Do you want to pop my one?
Are you scared?
I'm scared.
Okay. I'm scared.
Okay, collect the garbage. I already polluted the ocean enough.
So sad.
How would your primary school teacher have described you? The best, funniest, worst student in her class. And smartest.
That's awesome.
If you're watching this, I know I am. I know I am.
Okay.
Oh,
I lost the paper.
I'm scared.
Start.
I'm just gonna, we're gonna pick that up. See, I'm the savior of the story.
This is so chaotic. Okay.
Only one fish was harmed. Or maybe two.
Okay, let's see.
That's not long.
If you could have I'm pretty sure I typed this wrong. If you could have a conversation with any animal, which one would it be and what would you talk about? I think maybe that iguana over there. And I would ask him, first of all, what he is. And I don't know, I think I would just talk about like, I don't know, what it's like to just be perching on the ocean all the time, like looking at the sea all the time at Bird's Isle, and have people always eating around you. Like, I think that'd be really fun.
I would have a perfect answer for that.
What?
I'd talk to a bird and I would ask, why do you always have diarrhea on people?
Oh, that's a good question.
And also, why do you steal people's food?
That's a good question.
That's
Okay.
I'm gonna question a
David.
bird someday.
I have no idea what happened.
Okay. I'm just gonna go collect those.
Where did it go?
Sorry.
So when the fish are about to be harmed.
It like disappeared into thin air.
Where's the paper?
All the way over there. It's too small.
Oh shoot! I can get it. I'm not hooked up to anything. Okay.
All right, this better be good.
I think I got up like 20 times already.
A lot of work. Getting into this question here.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Share a funny childhood nickname or a story related to your nickname. So I'll share both nicknames that I went by growing up. So one, my last name is Kiblinger, and that sounds a lot like a certain dog food called Kibbles and Bits. So I went by Kibbles a lot, and then also when I was growing up, I don't know if he's still a thing, but the video game Donkey Kong, my initials are DK, and so DK Donkey Kong.
Okay. Okay.
I think this is your question. Okay, tell us 2 truths and a lie. Okay, so you have to guess?
Yes.
All right. Okay. I went to Holy Redeemer. I like spicy food, and my favorite color is blue.
Okay, I guess everyone will take a guess, and then you'll reveal the answer later. So we can start with Father.
I don't think your favorite color is blue.
Okay. I guess I'll go next. I don't think you went to Holy Redeemer.
I also don't think you went to Holy Redeemer.
I don't think your favorite color is blue.
Nobody got it right. I don't like spicy food.
Oh my gosh! Okay.
I have a hate-love relationship with spicy food.
Nice. Okay, so that is all for our activity. Now, our next segment, we're going to have a group discussion with just the youth that are featured on the show. So we'll have Father step aside and he will be a part of the discussion later. So our first segment was our activity. Now we're going to have group discussion with just the youth about our topic for this episode. And our topic is prayer. So we're just going to talk about it, have group discussion. And then once we are done with our group discussion, we'll take a break. And after the break, we are going to have Father enter the discussion, and he will have the opportunity to ask the youth questions. The youth will have an opportunity to ask him questions, and we'll just have a discussion, including Father. And then at the end, we'll have a one-on-one discussion with Father and I about the topic. So please stay tuned. This episode of Beyond Basic was brought to you by Castillo's Hardware, the University of Belize, and Bird's Isle Restaurant and Bird's Isle Cabanas. And here we have our youth group members. For those who have not been with us from the beginning, can we just reintroduce ourselves? And we're gonna, this time, you guys are going to say how long you've been a part of your youth groups. So I'll start. I'm, once again, Tessa Habet, and I'm no longer in a youth group because they kicked me out when I graduated high school. But Ernest, you can go next.
I'm Ernest, and I've been in my youth group for 2 years. But I've been an honorary member since I was 7, so that's 7 years.
Yes, I remember that.
I'm Carly. I actually just recently joined, so it's only been like 2 months, roughly. So hopefully they don't look at the fact that I've already graduated.
So I'm Ari, and I've also been in my youth group for like 2 to 3 months. I'm very new.
Yes. Newborn youth group member. Okay, that's awesome. So part of the kind of goal of this show is to feature youth groups and maybe like what they're doing. So if you could maybe tell us what your youth group experience is like, and you know what you guys like do, maybe your favorite part of youth group, like how often you meet, if you're involved in anything outside of just youth group sessions, like just describe your youth group experience, like how has it been so far.
So we meet every Friday, and normally we have either go to adoration or we have lecture divina, and then after that we have snacks, and then we can socialize and play games.
My youth group also meets every Friday, and we open with a prayer, and we discuss topics that might be pressing, like bullying or whatever social topics might be happening, and then we have a light snack, and we finish with games.
Okay, so we meet every Friday at like 5 o'clock. Sometimes we meet Saturdays when we have church. Normally we start by the Our Father, just to be holy. And then after that, we play games, we laugh. One of the members they like teasing people. And I'm the one to abuse him back, alright? So I'm a good person. I'm abusing him in a good way. But yeah, that's how we do it. Most of the time we bring our own snacks because I'm picky, so yeah.
Okay, well, so our topic is prayer, and we just want to talk about what is prayer, how would you define prayer to be, and what does your prayer life look like? So how often do you pray, when do you pray, stuff like that.
So I normally pray at least once a day, especially because my father makes me pray, but mostly once a day, at least.
And what would you like to find prayer to be?
guess it's the way you talk to God. Thank Him for everything He gave you. Kind of like being grateful.
Yeah, I think prayer is a communication with God, and recently I found myself praying more often and more randomly, because I think people normalize praying as like a formality, and you need to be like at a certain place or like have a certain form of reverence. But I think prayer could be in any time of silence, any time that you feel bored or like there's nothing else to do. You could take that time to talk with God, even if it's just to say thank you for waking me up, thank you for the gifts that you've given me. So I find myself randomly saying a simple thank you often.
Yeah, I think that is like true. Like it's a good point, because like Ernest was saying, it's how you talk to God is like about relationship, and if we just make it a formal thing, like an event, which I mean it is, like you do have to formalize it in a way that it's like you have to make sure you pray. So it's like if you do it every morning, like make sure you pray every morning. But it is something that, like, if you think about your like best friend, like you don't say, okay, well it's time to talk to my best friend, gotta get, like, it's my appointment with my best friend. Like you think, oh, like I can't wait to talk to her. Oh look, like something good just happened, I have to tell my best friend. And that's kind of the point that we should get to, like when it comes to prayer. So yeah, I think that was a good point.
Okay, so like because of school, I pray 7 times a day, and whenever it's a Friday, I pray 9 times because of you. So like she said, prayer is like communication with God, but it really depends on the type of prayer, because you can be praying for like praise or supplication or thanksgiving or like anything else, confession really too. So it depends on what you're praying for. But personally, I pray for like whenever I have free time, or like you say, when you feel bored, I pray. And you can also be praying for someone else, like if someone is sick or maybe a test is coming up, an exam, you just pray for them. You pray that they're gonna be happy and they're gonna do good. So it depends on the prayer, honestly.
Yeah. And you guys, like, I know for me, sometimes I have a hard time with like formal prayer, like some like prayers that are kind of like formulated, and like you can get distracted, and like do you find yourselves like struggling with that, or like struggling with like why do we have to like say that a rosary, or why do we have to like go to mass? Like do you guys have like a hard time with those prayers, or is it like?
So the rosary, it's sometimes I just zone out. Like my body, like even if I'm doing a decade, my body just goes on autopilot, and I reach 15 Hail Marys, and I'm just regaining my consciousness, like, oh, I'm praying. Because like it's just tedious and it's just repetitive, like sometimes you get too distracted.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah, I think praying the rosary, I guess I personally don't know the reason for all the 5 decades yet. I do still respect it, and I still pray along, but I don't see why we do all that. But in church, I think it's easy to get distracted. Like if there's like a crying baby, I think I lose attention from the sermon. But my favorite praise is worship songs. So that's my favorite aspect of church, especially St. Martin's. St. Martin's is a good church for praise and worship, because the choir, it really like everyone sings, and it's like you feel God when everyone is reciting the song. So
Okay, so when I pray the rosary, personally, I normally fall asleep. But other times, like if you're in church, I kind of have to stay awake, because, well, like when I have church during school time, like at St. Joseph, the priest always comes up to me for some reason. I don't know why. I think I'm one of his favorites. But he always comes up to me, so I have to stay awake, because if he catches me sleeping, I'm going to be in trouble. And also, well, I don't know if this is like a normal thing, but normally every time we reach a decade, we pray for something specific, like for the sick or for the homeless. I normally pray for the sick, for the homeless, for my family, for my friends, and like for any random other person I want to pray for. But one of my favorite ways to worship or like pray is praying. I love praying, actually. Yeah. I love talking, so that's probably why I love praying. me. I have to talk.
Yeah.
I'm a big mom.
That's awesome. No, yeah, I think for me, I had a hard time with the rosary for a long time. Just because, yeah, I would zone out, or I was like, I feel like it's not productive prayer. Like I'm not gaining anything. I'm not going anywhere. Like it's just not. Yeah. So then I would be like, oh, like I'll do other things for prayer. So I like to like read. So I'll like go to, like if I go to adoration or if I like have prayer time, I'll like pick a book and I'll read like a spiritual book, like about the lives of the saints or some like theological book. And I thought, oh, that's like productive. I'm learning stuff. I am like, you know, I'm growing closer to God. I'm like becoming more holy. But I think that as time went on, I realized that I wasn't like praying for people, and I wasn't like turning to God like in humility and being like, God, I need you because I can't do this. Like if my mom is sick, I can't do anything about that. Like I need to entrust that to you, or if I have a decision to make, I can't make that decision on my own. Like I need to consult God. And so I kind of warmed up to the rosary more, as realizing that it was like an opportunity for me to reach out and say like, I give this to you. Like this is not mine this is not my cross to carry, and this is not my burden to bear. And seeing it more like that, and then more for praying for other people than for like praying for myself, and just realizing that prayer doesn't have to be productive. Like it doesn't have to give you something. You don't have to gain anything from prayer. That it is something that you give to God, and it's like a relationship, you know. It's like sitting down with your friend, just sitting, and you're not like doing anything, but you're just hanging out, and that's important. And you know, you don't think with your friend like, man, I didn't really gain anything from her today, but you know, you think like, oh, that was like really good to hang out with my friend. It was good to talk to that person. And so it's very important to see that sort of aspect of prayer. And also like with the Mass is obviously important, because when we talk about the Mass, like the Mass is the way God asked us to worship Him. Like that is the way He wants us to worship Him. And so we can't really like compromise on that. Like we can't really say, well, I don't really like it. It's not my thing, you know? And so that's just like offering, especially on Sundays, like offering that day to God, because He needs to be worshipped, and we have to worship Him because He's given us our life. He's given us everything that we have. And so we have to thank Him for that, and there should be a day of the week designated to thanking Him. I'm going to ask you if you have any like stories or testimonies of a time when you prayed and your prayer was answered, and you like knew in that moment, like, yeah, God exists and prayer is effective, and like you were amazed at the way that prayer could be so powerful.
I think there's never been a moment where I feel like God answered my verbal prayers, like the stuff that I directly asked for. Well, I mean, I'm alive, I have food, and so I'm thankful for those, but the specific cries, I don't believe that there's a moment that He answered those. But the silent prayers in my heart, the prayers like I didn't think I could get an A in chemistry, and then I got an A in chemistry. He helped with that, and I didn't ask for that directly, but it happened, and I definitely did not do it on my own. I'm not good in chemistry, so like those instances, I think that's where God answered prayers.
If we're going the school route too, then I guess my first semester in college, I had to take physics. Oh my gosh, that thing drove me insane. Like literally, I was like 6 hours a day I was studying physics, and I still like was getting 50s on the quiz, because we had quizzes every week. And I was like, God, I don't know how to do this. And I was neglecting prayer. Like I just wasn't praying, because I was like, I don't have time to pray. I have to do good on physics. So I was like neglecting prayer, and then I majorly failed every single quiz. And I went to the chapel, and I was like, God, I don't know what to do. And I was led to Esther. It's in the book of Esther, a specific chapter. And there was a chapter, and it was Esther going to the king, begging, she went to God before she went to the king, begging him to save her people from this horrible person who wanted to kill Jews. So she's begging God, and she was like a queen, and she's like has beautiful like robes and everything. She like took off all her robes, put ash on her face, was like in sackcloth, and was in front of God, and like God just completely humbled herself. And he told her, like in the Bible it says, like God told her that it is in your humility that attracts me. It is when you acknowledge that you can't do anything and that I'm only one that can help, that I'm like, my heart moves with pity for you. And I was like, okay, God, here I am. Like, I need open physics. I'm like praying. And the next quiz I got, and I barely studied that week because I prioritized prayer and I prioritized like going to mass and everything. And I got 103 on my physics quiz, and it was on the 103rd anniversary of Our Lady of Fatima. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. And I like talked to one of like the nuns at my school, and I like told her the story because she knows I was struggling with physics. And she was like, that's insane. And we're just like so happy. So yeah, it was like a time where God answered a school prayer really well. But yeah, so that's all for this segment. I wasn't keeping track of the time. But yeah, so that's all for this segment. We're going to call in our guest priest, and he will enter the group discussion and just we'll ask him questions, he'll ask us questions. It'll be great. So yeah, stay tuned. And we're back. So now we have someone else, a familiar face, back with us, joining us for the group discussion, and we'll have the opportunity to ask him questions. He has the opportunity to ask us questions. So yeah, welcome back, Father David.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if you guys want to start with your questions, so Ernest, you can start with your question.
Okay, so would your father, who is a deacon in the United States, since you're a priest, would he call you son, or would he call you a father?
It depends on the context, but we do I'll be like, Father, and he'll go, Father. Back and forth. But yeah, I mean, he usually will call me Father David, which was obviously very strange at first, and I usually just kind of brush it off. If he calls me Father David, I'll call him Father right back.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think my question kind of bounced off of that. I want to know, why do we call priests father?
Yeah, for some historical reasons. I mean, it's been from very early on. So let me tell you a story. When I was at the market here, I was buying some fruit last year, and the guy at the market goes, "Are you buying this for a church?" I said, "Yeah, buying it for a church." He goes, "What church?" St. Martin's. "Is that a Catholic church?" "Yeah, that's a Catholic church." "Well, I don't like them Catholics." And I was like, "Okay, tell me more. Why?" And he said, "Well, the Bible says call no man father, and they call their fathers father. So they're clearly going against the Bible." And I wasn't in the right state of mind to have a long conversation about this at the time, but it is a good question, and especially Catholics will get that, because Jesus did say call no man father. Now part of that is the context needs to be taken into account. So he's talking about the scribes and the Pharisees who are in positions of power and not being true spiritual guides to the people that were following them. And we know that we know that the early Christians did call people father. So St. Paul himself, in one of his letters, refers to himself as the father of a community that he was writing to. "You who are my children, I am your father." St. Stephen, the first martyr, called people fathers. So the early Christians would call, as a sign of respect, a spiritual leader father. Now, think about, what does a father do? A father basically gives you life, right? Someone becomes a father when they conceive a child. Well, we have not only our biological life, we have our spiritual lives. And especially at baptism, that's sort of the beginning of your life as a Christian. And so, although I'm not a biological father, I am a spiritual father, because I want to nurture that new life that Christ comes to give for all that are in my charge.
When did you start to like take prayer seriously? Like what point in your life, and like after you started to develop a more like deep prayer life, what would you say like what changed in your life?
Yeah, those are very good questions. So I actually had a very powerful prayer experience when I was in adoration one time in college, and it wasn't that I was in the regular habit of adoration, because I wasn't. I just happened to have somebody invite me, and so I went, and at that moment I felt a call to go deeper into my prayer life. And so this was when I was very blessed to have studied abroad when I was in college. So I was in Europe at the time. Well, when I got back to my school, they have a Catholic center, and they had adoration once a week, and they had daily mass during the week. And so I just started taking advantage of that, going to mass more often, doing an hour of adoration, and slowly but surely I got more in tune with God, and realizing that God communicates with us frequently, but we have to take time out in order to do that. We have to calm ourselves. We have to kind of get in touch with how we're feeling, in touch with that place of silence in our hearts. And I'd say that's what changed. I mean, just having that desire more and more to be closer to God. And so when it's like this thing, you start to pray, and then you have a great desire to be with God, and then you pray more, and that increases your desire, and it just keeps going, kind of going up and up. And so, I'm still learning to pray. And one of the things that I find fascinating is that your prayer looks differently based on where you're at in your life, what your job is, what your formation is. And so just encourage you to keep, no matter where you're at in your life, find that mode of prayer that keeps you desiring God.
Do you have any questions for our guests for today?
Sure. Well, this is just something that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and trying to, really try to reinvigorate the faith at John Vianney. And a question that I get is, somebody will say, I'm a Christian person. I pray, I read my Bible, and that's good. I have a good relationship with God. And my first instinct, or my first question is, well, so that's well and good, but I don't see you at Mass. Do you have any idea what the highest form of prayer is? So that's my question for you. What would you say, of all the ways to pray, what's the highest and the most effective form of prayer? What would you say?
I mean, you're talking about the Mass, so I'll say the Mass.
I sort of gave it away, didn't I? Yeah, so for us Catholics, like a lot of times we think prayer is kind of, being quiet by myself someplace. And that's true, that is prayer. Jesus got up early in the morning and went to pray in some lonely places, deserted places where he could get quiet. But our faith teaches us that Mass, and especially Sunday Mass, is our highest and our most effective form of prayer. Because what can't you get by praying in your room and reading the Bible in your room? That's my second question.
You can't get the interpretation from people who have studied theology, so the homily that the
Okay, that's excellent, right. So you're not in a community. You may run that danger of interpreting something just on your own that may not be right, because we have a whole tradition. We have a whole, literally thousands of years of reflection on the Bible. Good. What else? What else can't you get by being in your room and praying?
You don't get a connection with other people, because I feel like when you pray with more than one person, it feels like the prayer is stronger or it
Yeah.
works better like when you're praying with other people.
Yeah, like Jesus said, where 2 or 3 are gathered, there am I in their midst. Excellent. So that's an excellent answer. And what did you say right before that?
The Eucharist.
The Eucharist as well. The Eucharist. You can't have Jesus's body and blood, soul and divinity if you're in your room. And so when Jesus is present spiritually everywhere through his Holy Spirit, but he's only present in his body and in his blood in the Holy Eucharist. And all of our Christian life, all of our Christian action, all of our prayer actually flows from the Eucharist. And so if I were to give one bit of advice to you all, never, unless you're absolutely sick or there's some other emergency, never miss Sunday Mass. Don't take that for granted, because all of these other prayers that we think about reading the Bible, being in silence, all of that is enriched by your practice on Sunday and flows from it. So those are my 2 questions.
Thank you so much, Father. That's such a good exhortation. And the Eucharist it's the one thing that it's like, if you're Catholic for any reason, it should be for the fact that we have, the body, blood, and soul and divinity of God, just like in the church and right there at Mass.
Talking about prayer, I wanted to say so I'm a Jesuit priest, and there's a lot of formation that we do before we become a priest. So I was in formation for 11 years before I was ordained a priest. Yeah, exactly. So it's a long process, but one of the first things that we do is we spend 30 days in silence doing the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius Loyola. And so we have some, in the history of our church, these spiritual geniuses, that it's not necessarily that they themselves were geniuses, but that God gives them a very special insight into the spiritual life. And so our founder, St. Ignatius Loyola, wrote this manual basically for a 30-day silent retreat. And so my days were spent basically around several prayer periods. So we do 4 to 5 hour-long prayer periods every day for a month. So I have my journal where I did, I think, 127 hours of prayer in that month. And I gotta say, that was amazing. That showed me a lot about, especially Ignatian spirituality. And one of the great things I get to do is every year I have to go back and do the exercises. So I don't do a month long, but I do 8 days of retreat every year. And when August comes around, I already have my retreat scheduled for this year, and I'm super busy during, basically every day. But I love that time, that's sort of my time to get away and be quiet and sort of reconnect to that contemplative prayer that I learned back when I was beginning to be a Jesuit.
I think that's all we have for this segment. So I hope that everyone has gotten all their questions out. And now we're going to move on to a segment that's going to be one-on-one with just me and Father. And so thank you so much for participating in this episode. If you have any final words before we end your segment. Well, thank you so much for saying yes. Yes. Okay. And we're back. So now we're going to have our one-on-one interview with Father David Kiblinger from St. John Vianney, and we're just going to talk about the topic more in depth, and I'm going to ask him a little bit more, we're going to go deeper into this topic. We're going to really talk about prayer from a more learned point of view, because as he said before, 11 years, that you were studying, that's really long, because normal, like a diocesan priest would be 8, 9 9?
Well, depending if you have your bachelor's, like
Oh.
anywhere from 6 to 8.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. And you guys go for...
We go for longer than that.
Yeah.
My brother entered medical school and finished residency in the middle of my formation, so it's definitely longer than his formation for being a doctor.
That's awesome. Dang, that is dedication. What made you choose the Jesuits?
Because many reasons. One, I think it was just God's call. But as a religious order, unfortunately, in a lot of places in the world, religious orders are declining in number, and that's true with us too. But we're still a pretty healthy group, and so I entered with 14 guys, and 7 of us are priests. So that's a pretty good retention rate, actually. They say about a third make it through formation to priesthood. And so, I've got, my best friends are my classmates that I entered the society with. So that was one reason. And then also the long formation, knowing that we would have, lots of opportunities for good education, for being placed in ministries. So sort of the Jesuit mentality is that we go to places where it's hard to reach for the institutional church. So whether that be in geographic areas, so like we have a great missionary history, whether that be intellectually, so we have a lot of scholars that are doing intellectual work and dialoguing with other major thinkers, major fields. So anyway, I sort of like that. I knew I'd get a good formation and also be placed in situations that would stretch me and form me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, yeah, the Jesuits are cool. You guys are everywhere.
The joke is our communities are the largest hotel chain in the world.
Wow. Okay.
So I know I would have a place to stay just about anywhere in the world.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I just want to jump back to the topic and ask you, as a priest, how would you define prayer? Like a basic standard definition of prayer.
Yeah, I would just go with a very classic one. It's raising your mind and heart to God. So whatever it is that gets you in contact with the reality that's greater than what we see, I think that's prayer. Yeah. So many great saints have offered definitions of prayer that anything that I would give wouldn't be wouldn't hold a candle to that. But I think raising your mind and heart to God.
Nice. And why do you think it's important for us to pray? Like for someone watching who maybe is like, I don't get the point. Like, what would you say?
Yeah. Why is it important to breathe? Like prayer is the breath of our spiritual life, and so when we don't pray, then we get thrown off. Yeah. Then we're not growing, we're not being formed. We fall into bad habits, we lose our connection with God. And so prayer has to be that that which sustains our spiritual life.
Yeah. My mom always told us growing up, she would say, there's only 2 things you have to do: die and pray.
I like that. Well, isn't that Father Antonio, the Sultan?
I think that was before the book. Maybe he got it from I'm kidding.
No, maybe he did. That's the pray or die, right?
He does have that book. I have it on my shelf. Haven't gotten to it yet. But pray or die. I wish I had already read it so that I could talk about it. That is true. And she would always say that, and obviously as like a kid or a teenager, I'm like, it's not true. What do you mean? But it's so true, especially like growing up. But you realize it's kind of like you think that you're afloat, and you think that you're fine if you aren't praying. But once you start to pray, you realize just how lost you've been until you form that relationship, and just how it's kind of like you don't need to do it on your own. Like we think like we do, and like I'll survive. Like I'll do it myself. Like I won't. But like you don't have to. Like why would you if you don't have to? And you know God, He's there, and you really have nothing to lose. Like if you've never prayed before, you know, like you have nothing to lose in just like trying and just like lifting up and shouting out into God and saying like, hey, like if you're there, I need you. Because there's times where there's literally nothing you can do when it comes to illness, or it comes to like we were talking about in the previous segment, our experiences with prayer and times when we've prayed and it's been answered. And we were all talking about like school, like when you have a test, it's like you reach the room and you're like, okay, there's nothing else I can do now, and it's up to the grace of God to pull me out of these situations. But I'm sure that as a priest, you've seen some really like radical prayers being answered. So like, do you have any stories of that you would like to share?
Well, you know, I sort of want to share about like, you know, this may not be the sort of answer to the prayer that is like, wow, God healed this person, or God got me out of debt, or what, you know, whatever it is. And yes, I think God does that for His own purposes. But I do think when you start maturing in your prayer life, prayer's different. So it's not so much about. So one part of it is going to God in your need, but your needs change, right? I'm thinking like personally. So, you know, my need is to grow more in the fruits of the Spirit. I need to be more loving. I need to be more joyful. I need to be more patient, and on and on and on. And so prayer is less about God, give me the good things and keep me from suffering, and more like, God, keep forming me, you know, in the image of your Son, all right? That keep growing in virtue, because that's ultimately what we're called to do. You know, Jesus says, be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. And we only get to heaven when we've gone through that process of being made perfect. If that, you know, hopefully we get far along the path in this life, but then we have purgatory in front of us if we're not made perfect at that point. But yeah, so the prayer is less like, you know, of course, when I was a kid, I prayed to win my games, you know, I prayed for a new bike or whatever it was. But then as you grow, you pray, I think, to grow in the virtues. Yeah. And so for me, like, when a prayer is answered, it's more like, wow, myself a year ago would have blown up in this situation, and I didn't in that moment, right? And so that shows some progress, at least in the spiritual life. And so Ignatius, when he, at the very first, the beginning of the spiritual exercises, he says, I call a spiritual exercise anything that helps us get rid of our disordered affections. Because we have these desires, we do these actions, all of this stuff which takes us away from God. And so a spiritual exercise helps us to get rid of that so that we put ourselves in order and then can serve God. And so, like, that is how I think of the goal of prayer. And that's something that, you know, God captures our attention, I think, by, you know, getting us through tough situations, but then getting more and more like I think it's better to be in a tough situation and not lose hope and learn from it and grow in the virtues than it is for that tough situation to just be taken away from you.
That's so good. That's so true, Father. And one of my favorite Bible verses, I cannot remember the actual verse, where it's from. It's a psalm, but it's delight in the Lord and He will give you the desires of your heart. And when it's been my favorite Bible verse throughout the time where I have had sort of my initial encounter with God, it's been my favorite verse, and it stayed my favorite verse, but for different reasons. And it's like, initially it was, oh, like if I like God, then I'm gonna get everything I want.
Yeah.
But as I have like progressed, I've learned that it's more of not he'll give me what I want, but he will, like you said, change my desires, and then my heart will change, and I'll want different things. And so it's like, oh, maybe I wanted him to answer this prayer for a selfish reason, or I wanted to go to this, like, wanted to do something for like something that, and it wouldn't have like benefited me, probably would have been bad for me.
Yeah.
But him like changing those desires and like being like getting to a point where it's like all I want is him, and so my prayers will be in accord with his will, and I will pray for what he wants for me instead of what I want, and then throw a tantrum when I don't get what I want. And so it's kind of, it's like maturing in just like as we do in like our physical sense and our like emotional maturity. Like when I was younger, I want candy and my mom would say no, and I get mad at my mom, and then I like, or like as a teenager wanting to do things and my mom would be like no, and then I had a difficult relationship during teenagers with my mother because of my desires were not what were good for me, and she knew what was good for me. And then getting older.
So you're a normal teenager.
Yeah, I was a normal. And then like now that I'm a little bit older, like I'm still not perfect, and like there's still stuff that me and my mom like will, you know, rub shoulders on, but it gets better because I see now like the things that I would ask my mom for, she can say yes more, because it's more like, oh yeah, like this is a good thing and this is for your betterment, and I don't desire things anymore that would harm me. And then I look at my like teenage sister and the sort of like I see my mom's point of view, and I'm like, oh yeah, like I agree with her, and my sister is like, you're not on my side. But it's like, no, like that's part of like maturation, is especially in the spiritual life too, because the spiritual life is a life, you know, and we grow and we mature and we change. And so yeah, that's a good point. But I want to ask, like, what would be your advice to someone who like hasn't prayed in a while, or maybe is just starting? Like, what's like somewhere they can start, and like what would be your advice to them?
Just to start.
Yeah.
Like literally say, I'm gonna take 10 minutes and I'm gonna sit in a chair and I'm gonna pray. And that's it. It doesn't matter what your prayer is. It could be listening to spiritual songs. It could be just sitting in silence. It could be, you know, reading a psalm. Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. But just start.
Yeah.
You know, prayer is not going to be something that is fireworks all the time. That's not prayer. There's, you know, the great mystics. You know, John of the Cross says, you know, as you start praying, you move from the sweetness of prayer to the giver of the sweetness, right? So God will, you know, God doesn't want you to stay in all of these like big constellations and things like that. God will give them to you, but like your only job is to show up. So if it's dry, if you're bored, it doesn't matter. It's still your 10 minutes of prayer. And so just my advice would be to just do it.
This is good advice, Father. Now I want to ask about maybe someone who has a prayer life, has been devoted, you know, for years, and just wants to go deeper, and maybe, you know, they feel like, yeah, like I've been in the same place for so long, and I want intimacy with God. I just don't, like, I desire it, but I just don't know how to go deeper.
Yeah, well, one of the great things about living in the information age is there are great resources out there on YouTube, on different websites that will teach you the basics of the main types of prayer, Lectio Divina, praying with Scripture, the spiritual exercises of Ignatius, the liturgy, the hours during the day, praise and worship music, and any of that stuff. And so I would say experiment a little bit with different styles of prayer. I mean, I think there are probably as many spiritualities in the church as there are people who pray, because God communicates with each of us differently. I'll plug, as a Jesuit, I mean, the spiritual exercises taught me how to pray, like really taught me how to pray. And the spiritual exercises I believe every year the Jesuit community runs a spiritual exercises in daily life. And it's a big commitment. I mean, it's over the course. They just finished up a couple of weeks ago this year's, they call it the 19th Annotation Retreat. And so there were a group of almost 20 people that did the full spiritual exercises. Now, not how I did it, not in a month in silence, but over the course of like 6 or 7 months in their daily life. So look out for that if you want to do the 19th annotation. The other thing I would say is spiritual direction. So try to find a spiritual director, someone who can help guide you as you take those steps to pray. I'll plug again, the Jesuit community of Belize just trained 6 spiritual directors for Belize. So they just graduated and they did some intense training. So it was over the course of 2 years that they were trained. And
Those Belizeans?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, so we have spiritual directors for our diocese. So your priests may be able to take on some spiritual directees, but it's not going to be many. But there are other people who have been trained to be spiritual directors. So a spiritual director, that's one of the things when we're discerning to join the priesthood or something like that, the first thing they do is say, get a spiritual director. And a spiritual director just is someone who knows you and can help kind of see God's will and reflect as you pray and you have these experiences, sort of reflect back to you to kind of even deepen what went on and kind of give you some direction for that. So spiritual exercises of Ignatius, 19th annotation, spiritual direction.
Thank you so much, Father, for sharing.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been such a good episode. Thank you so much for watching, for joining us. If you have not seen Beyond Basic before, you can go back. We have 3 seasons previously that you can watch. So make sure you go back and watch those and look out for our other episodes. Like I said, we will be going all throughout the country this summer, featuring young people and priests from every district. So you're not going to want to miss this season. And I hope to see you next week. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless.
Castillo's Hardware, your trusted source for quality. Looking for unbeatable deals on hardware and home essentials? Head over to Castillo's Hardware today. We've got competitive prices on PVC pipes SCH 40 sizes from 1/2 to 8 inches, SCH 26 sizes from 1 1/4 to 4 inches, up to 20% off on select sizes. And that's not all. Don't miss out on our flash sale featuring the Whirlpool Top Freezer Refrigerator with optional ice maker, freezer temperature controls, dairy bin, and incandescent lighting, all for just $1,295. We also have a special promotion on the Whirlpool washing machine. Get it now for just $1,195. Enjoy multiple wash temperatures, a heavy-duty cycle, and progress monitoring features. Plus, we're offering 50% off Valspar Integrity paints. Choose from a wide range of no-compromise colors for your home, available in gallons and buckets. Visit Castillo's Hardware today for these amazing deals and more. We are located at Pescador Drive, San Pedro Town, Belize. Contact us at 226-2302 or 614-6632. Email cast.hardware@btl.net. These offers are valid while supplies last. Terms and conditions apply. Castillo's Hardware, your trusted source for quality.
In the hustle of our daily lives, speeding is common. But on the road, it is deadly. Attention drivers. The Department of Transport is equipped with radar guns. If you're speeding, you will be caught. Gone are the days of unchecked speeds. Every mile over the limit is a risk not worth taking. Be vigilant. Speed limits vary on the highway. What's safe here may be dangerous there. Disregard for speed limits will not be taken lightly. A $250 fine can be imposed for speeding. Remember, it's not just your life at stake. Speed limits are set to protect us all, our families, our friends, and our future. Together, let's make our roads safer in Belize. Respect the limits. Respect life. This is a message from the Second Road Safety Project.